Okay, you guys, welcome back. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I can definitely tell I have a cold because when I was editing part one for your primary emotions, I noticed that my brain was not connecting with my mouth, and my mouth was not connecting with my thoughts, and my sentence structures were a little kind of crazy. So I'm just going to back up a little bit and kind of explain stuff again. So the interesting thing about primary emotions is, again, they're the first line of defense when we're born. And they're programmed in the body to do one main thing, which is to keep our sense of ourself with an availability to know what we would like and not like, what we like and what we dislike, what we get to experience and truly feel solid about in our lives compared to things that we don't feel solid about. Primary emotions, there's five of them in this case, just for the sake of the simpleness of having five, but there are other ones that are out there. But this will be kind of good for the example I want to show you right now. So the idea about, when I was younger and driving down the road or whatever, going for walks, and then all of a sudden have this deep reflection on something that I did in the past, and then have that physical jolt that would happen to me, or that physiological reaction when I was thinking about something I did in the past, and how that ends up being discussed. And I mentioned in the first part about how these can actually get to be hijacked in our bodies. And once they become hijacked in our bodies, in other words, we don't own them, and I'll explain coming up here what I mean by that in a few minutes here, then what ends up happening is we actually can become addicted to them. So for instance, you wouldn't think that, like, joy, well, yeah, everyone would love to be happy all the time, but that's not what I'm talking about. I have a picture of when I was younger, and I have my older brother over on my right side, my mom's in the middle, and my older brother is on the left side, and I'm down on the lower section here. And with my older brother, you can see he's got kind of a contempt in his eyes, and heaviness is in my mother's eyes, and there's a lostness in my other brother's eyes. And here you have me at the very front of them, smiling from ear to ear. And that's because I was in a form of a magical delusional style of thinking. I didn't know I was in it. It was more of a survival tool. And what was my processing when I was younger was, as long as I'm smiling, everything's going to be okay. And my primary emotion of joy was actually hijacked to be joyful all the time. So you might know some people like this where they're just smiling all the time. Now, I smile all the time. If you watch my videos, you notice I'm smiling all the time. Well, the difference is I'm owning this smile. The other one was more of an act of me smiling out of fear, low chronic anxiety, low chronic heaviness. So all of these primary emotions, the main thing about primary emotions is they protect us. So I shouldn't have picked up, if I still had disgust available to me as primary emotion, I would have been able to maintain a internal perception of myself that when disgusting things happen to me, when I touch disgusting things, when I experience disgusting things, I am not those disgusting things. When our primary emotions are solid in our body, they're compasses, and they're also warning flags that something has come into the system, our sense of self, that should not be there. But as time goes on and you're raised in a family system, especially if it's not a fairly healthy family system, which most people probably viewing would probably somewhat relate to, then what ends up happening is these all become into question. In other words, I don't own them anymore. I start questioning all of these primary feelings about myself. And it really confuses my ability to stay solid in myself. So when you look at the primary emotion of fear, you get addicted to fear. What's that look like in the body? Well, you get addicted to adrenaline, anxiety. So some people can be chronically anxious all the time. I remember I dealt with some fairly high up intellectual, and they were trying to negotiate some stuff because every time during a certain season of the year they had to do a specific project, and the project always gave them anxiety. And I said to them, have you done this project before? Oh yeah, hundreds of times. And I remember saying to them, well, how do you negotiate all those other times? And they smiled at me and they said, well, I use fear. I went, what? Yeah, I use fear. There was anxiety. The fear of the implication to me if I don't get this job done. And you pick that up pretty young in an environment that's pretty toxic, thinking that if I do this and what happens to the body, you don't like the anxiety, yet the anxiety is increased, and so you do it out of the anxiety, and the anxiety completes the task, not you by choice, freedom inside yourself. You're now bond to anxiety, fear in your body, and as soon as the task is accomplished, then your body goes into what's called a relaxed state. And as soon as that happens, you program your programming system in your brain. Remember, you're not your brain, it's a programming system, like a computer. And as soon as that happens, you just program your brain. If you want to do something and you have to get it done, use anxiety. And it's a terrible way to go through life. And I know that regulator quite well because I used to use that myself. And the problem is it used to paralyze me with anxiety, which made me procrastinate, which made my anxiety to go up more, which made me procrastinate more, which made my anxiety go up more, and my procrastination go up more, and eventually the due date would be there, and I would cram like crazy to get everything done. And then, remember, I'm on adrenaline. That's what anxiety is into the system. And so I'm on this adrenaline, and then after I accomplish it, do the task, hand it in there, everything turns out okay, my body goes into a relaxed state because it's done and it's safe again. The monster's not going to come and get mad at me. Dad's not going to get mad at me. My boss is not going to get mad at me. There's another way of doing it without having to have that style of regulator. So all primary emotions are wired for one thing, which is to protect your sense of self. Remember, you're reliant on the environment of the family system you're born into, that these primary emotions are going to be kept safe, protected, and able to be practiced in the environment of whatever family system you come out of. So we've heard, you get parental scripts a lot with some of these things like, I'm really scared. What are you scared of? There's nothing to be scared of. I'll give you something to be scared of. Now I'm scared about being scared. Or I'm angry. I'll give you something to be angry about. These are scripts. We're getting better in regards to how we've been negotiating and talking to children instead of them being property. Like if you're from the 50s or 60s child, we were viewed as more like property. Unlike today, where we view little children as little people. That wasn't really a big option in our day, in my day. I'm over 55, so the key part about primary emotions is they're what protect your sense from things that happen to you in a variety of different ways that we experience in life. So that I don't become disgust. I don't become chronically, acutely fearful. In other words, with acute anxiety disorder. My sadness is available to me. And my anger is available to me. And my joy is available to me. And I don't know, some of these things you can just ask, when's the last time you had a good belly laugh with some friends where you guys were crying as adults? When's the last time you've done that, you guys? When's the last time you danced? When's the last time you caught yourself dancing? When's the last time you caught yourself singing? And then you realized, man, I'm singing. I feel good today. That's primary emotion of joy. That's an important cue to you, an internal cue to you, to let you know that when you're coming back to yourself, that should start showing up again. Not the intimidation of going out to dance or singing in front of people. You'll be doing the dishes and all of a sudden it'll just be available to you. That's what we're looking for. Natural process for your primary emotions to be available to you, because I'm pretty sure I can guarantee a lot of that's been hijacked. Okay, so I want to move out of that a little bit and just share a little bit about one other side or another angle. So when you look at emotions, remember this is all down here in the body. And the reason why I have these primary emotions is to notify my parents of a need met. I cry because my diaper's full. I'm getting really frustrated. That's part of anger over here. And that anger, because my diaper's getting full, needs to be changed, and it's not working for me very well, so I'm going to get cranky pants look on my face. You know, all these things are supposed to be wired so that we get a chance to get our needs met and to signal our parents, and hopefully they're fairly available in those stages of a baby, infant, and toddler's development stage, and present there, so we know that we're cared for, because that helps us stay in a relaxed state. So I'm going to show you kind of how things got hijacked. So in that first part I mentioned about how I end up being discussed. Now I lived, remember, 8 months to 28 years. I didn't even know I was carrying disgust until all of a sudden it would bore its ugly head when all of a sudden I'd be reflecting on something in the car, going for a walk, or whatever, doing the dishes, and then have a recollection of something I did in the past, and then literally have this convulsion to me. So I didn't even realize it was, and I was not even connected to my primary emotions, so I couldn't recognize it when it was actually in my body. So I had to ask the question, yeah, what is that? What is that feeling about me? And I had to sit in that feeling till I could figure out, that emotional experience. This is why feelings and emotions are like a coin. Our culture, even me, uses it back and forth. So the key part about your primary emotions is I need to be able to have the capacity to be able to sit in them so I can actually feel what they felt. I remember one time my dad was quite violent towards my brother that's above me, and he was ready to bear down on him and smack him out, and I had it at this point. I think it was in grade 7, and I was ballistic. Now what does that look like? Well, it looks like I finally get my anger back, and so I have my power back of anger. I'm no longer doing the happy, happy, joy, joy Leon. I just can't take it anymore. See, that's what happens when you have your primary emotions. They speak for justice in your body. So I went up to my dad and I said, stop doing that, stop hitting my brother, stop hitting my brother, stop hitting my brother. And then he went like this, smack across my face. My glasses went up, off my face, up into the counter. And as soon as that happened, my anger got capped, blocked. Because the problem with that is, as soon as that anger is blocked, my body realizes being angry doesn't work anymore. So I'll give you a little bit of a segue before I take you where I'm going to take you on the whiteboard. When I was in dealing with drug addictions, I couldn't figure out why I was so compulsive that I couldn't stop myself from doing something I didn't want to do. And if any of you are Christians out there watching, there's a good part in the book of Romans when it talks about, I do not do what I want to do, I do the very thing I hate. Do I do the good I want to do? Nay. King James Version, mixed in with the NIV. Nay, that I do not do, I keep on doing. Well, what's that all about? Well, here you got Paul, who's supposed to be this great Christian, but the whole context of that particular passage is talking present tense. So even this so-called great Christian, who's supposed to be all this godliness man kind of guy, well, he's always got a problem going on there. Sorry. Because he's got this thing that I'm doing something I don't want to do, and yet I can't stop doing it. That's called compulsivity. So I used to remember when I didn't want to go do drugs, but my addiction part of my brain and my physiological part of my body needed or were having a craving to go get it, my body kept moving forward. And I would literally go into convulsions as I would go to the car, turn the ignition on. My body would be literally shaking, not because I'm in with withdrawals. I'm going to just said that, but it's not because I'm in withdrawals. It's because energy and motions, primary emotions are energy and motions. I don't have those available to me. So because that energy is not available to me, it stays in my body. That's why my body's convulsing. And yet I still go get the drugs. And of course, while my body's in convulsion, it's also in duress and stress. So what ends up happening, I go get my drugs, I get the drugs, I take the drugs, puts me in a relaxed state, and that reinforces, unfortunately, my programming system in my brain to get a little bigger, saying this is how you handle when your body is out of control with convulsions. And there's a loop that happens. So I was programmed a long time ago when I was just a little kid to become an addict, basically, and I'll kind of show you that here. But again, just before we go on to that, so with that idea of this convulsion, this inability to seem to stop myself, even though I didn't want to keep doing something, I keep doing that which I do not want to do. And then, so this is over courses of years, and that's why it's really important that you really tap into your emotional history, because there's some real good jewels of wisdom in there. We've just been blinded by it because it's usually been hijacked with this fear and anxiety. But if you can stop looking at that and look at your life as a curiosity, you have a right to look at your life as a curiosity and go discover the mystery of what happened to you. When you give your body permission to do that, your body with intent will start snooping out that information for you. You don't have to go look for it, it'll just start snooping it out a bit. And there was another time when I actually went to my folks' place, and it was Christmas time. I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I think I was still in my 20s. But I wasn't living at home at the time. And because the family system I came out of was fairly violent, and it was fairly violent, I remember going home to my parents' place, and I got to the gate to their house. And the weird thing was, as I walked up to the gate, I found myself frozen. As I lifted the latch on the gate, and what entered my head was a thought that said, you know, there's a good chance your dad will kill you this weekend. Now, whether I thought that was true or not didn't matter. The sensory perception I felt was, there's a good chance it could happen. So I stopped myself. And then after that sense came right into my body, something happened. I still lifted the latch up. I could have just went back to my car and said, nah, I'm not doing it this year. But there's something happening in my body that I still move forward. Open the gate, go into the house, and go stay at their place for Christmas. He obviously didn't kill me, because here I am. But the interesting thing is, I'm in my car, I want to go get my drugs. I don't want to go get my drugs, but I still have to move forward. So my whole body's still going, even though my conscious availability, my witnessing self is saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore, but my body's already still going. I get to my folks' place on Christmas. I get to the gate. There's this thought in my head that says, good chance your dad's going to kill you. Lift the locked latch, open the door. I'm still moving forward. Now, why am I still moving forward? Well, because I don't have my anger available to me, because that's what helps me fight. But there's something else that's also primary under this thing called primary emotion of fear, sorry. I don't have that available to me. With your primary emotion of fear, you also have primary survival programming. And you've heard this particular one. Fight, flight, freeze. Fight, flight, freeze comes with this little package of fear right here. And if I don't have fight, flight, or freeze, I won't have the capacity to do what I need to do to protect myself and survive myself. Let me show you how that got robbed out of me. So here I am, never been hit by my father at this point. This is just a scenario. And say I'm 5 years old. Now I haven't seen my dad's never hit me at 5 years old, but he certainly has beaten the shit out of my other brothers. Now, I don't know what beating the shit out of, but all I know is I don't want that ever to happen to me. So I'm already adapted to my environment, my system, my family system, to smile all the time and be the funny guy, because that keeps me safe. Because who wants to beat up the funny guy? Well, nobody wants to beat up the funny guy, right? Plus, I'm the youngest. But one day, my dad turns to me and he says, "Get over here." And he points down beside him. Now, he's never hit me before, but I recognize that look, and I know what that look is. So what I do is I go into my fear, and then my fear goes into its automatic defense mechanism, which is flight. So I run as a 5-year-old. And as I run, he grabs me. And as soon as he grabs me, my flight switch is now shut off as my body realizes running doesn't work. Fleeing a situation doesn't work. So I do my secondary standby, which is fight. "No, Daddy, no, don't, Daddy, don't." Smack. My fight switch is now shut off. So I've already lost 2 imperative primary defense mechanisms, fight and flight. When he looks at me, he says, "Get over here." He hasn't hit me yet, but I know that look. So I automatically, I'm not thinking about it, I'm already running across the floor, trying to get out of the room. He grabs me. As soon as he grabs me, flight switch is shut off. As soon as that flight shift is shut off, because I can't run away, and I'm in fear, which means I'm in trauma, and I'm traumatically bonded to this inability to escape, I'm now locked in, and I also lose an option to have power about situations in regards to running away from them. So I freeze up. And I'll elaborate on how that's affected me down the road with other incidents that happened to me as well. Next one is I start to fight. "No, Dad, no, no, no." Smack. No use fighting against somebody who's 16 feet tall when you're 5 years old. It's like they're monsters to you. You can't fight a monster. You're just a little person. They're this big. You're this big. So that switch is shut off. So what am I left with? Freeze. Now remember, emotions, primary emotions, are energy in motion. That energy in motion can't do what the energy in motion needs to do, which is run, fight, or freeze. And you're in control of that process, and it gets to safety, so your body can come back to a relaxed state, so it processes that whole thing and you own it via that relaxed state period. Then what you are is cut off from those resources. So it only makes sense that when I am frozen, or when my dad says, "Get over here," that I go. I cannot not go. It only makes sense that I can't say no. I can't fight. I can't flight. I can only freeze in my body because I don't even own my body anymore. My body's now an automatic. Outside world sources now control my inability, my lack of power, personal power, to be able to manage and negotiate my life because it was beaten out of me, criticized out of me, ridiculed out of me, second-guessed in me. So I can't trust me. And plus I'm now disgusting. How disgusting am I? I won't be able to unravel the whole mystery in one video, you guys. You won't be able to unravel your own personal mystery in a few months. I want you just to give your life a chance to reflect on what has happened to some of us. And don't do it as a judgment or an accusation or a condemnation. But if those feelings come up, that contempt comes up, that resentment comes up, that injustice comes up, you have to learn how to practice to stay in it so you can find out what is that. What is this injustice? Not just the word, which is important to label it, but actually what is the injustice in that? Now if you don't have your primary emotions, especially sorrow or sadness available to you, you won't be able to bawl. Remember, these are really young parts of when you're a little kid. You've probably met adults, seniors, who've acted like 5-year-olds. That's because that's where they're frozen at. Of a 5-year-old tantrum with their anger. The anger's still at a 5-year-old in an 82-year-old body. Or they still are, they don't have their sadness available. They have their hurt and sorrow available to you, which are actually feelings, not primary emotions. There can be an overlap in that. Again, this is not academic, I'm just trying to get an idea across to you. So let me show you some things, okay? I just need a little break, and then I'll come right back.